About a month ago, or 6 weeks ago, we spoke about the Tikkun Magefa, and I quoted from the Tzemach Tzedek, and Shema Tzemach Tzedek, the Seder of saying the end of Parshas Tetzaveh, the construction of the Mizbeach, and then in Parshas Kisisa, the Mishchas, Shemen HaMishkan, and then the Ktoires, and then to say Pitum HaKtoires, and then to say the Psukim of Hashem Tzvoi Simonu 3 times, those 3 psukim 3 times, and then to say the parsha of in Parshas in Bamidbar, in Sefer Bamidbar, where Aaron was in Parshas Korach, when Aaron goes and takes the pan to stop the Torahs to stop the Magefa, and then to say Kapitel Samach Zayin in Tilim, and then to say this pasuk Vayema Aleim Yisrael Avihem in Kein Efes Asu. And then to say Tehillim Vihinoyam 3 times, and then Yoshev V'Seis. That was the Seder which I shared on this forum some 6 weeks ago. And during this time, I've been trying to do it on a regular basis, on a daily basis. But what intrigued me is this pasuk of Vayomer Alehem. What's the connection of this pasuk? Vayomer Alehem Yisrael Avihem. That when the sons of Yaakov are gearing up to go back down to Mitzrayim to get provisions the second time, and they got into trouble the first time, they were accused of being spies, Shimon's be taken as a captive. So Yisrael, their father, says to them, in Cain, if that's the case, Ephoi, well, Zoisasu, this is what you should do. Take from the best fruit, the praise of the land, take it in your containers, your vessels, and take a gift for the man, the viceroy. Ma'at sori, ma'at dvash, a bit of this, a bit of that, the various spices, a bit of honey. He tells them to take various ingredients, various delicacies to take down to Mitzrayim. All right, that means a very beautiful passage. What has that got to do with averting a plague or the consequences of a plague? That was really what was bothering me, and I looked up in various sources. I couldn't find. And then I was looking for something else. You look for something else and you find, there's a sefer which I'll show in the next slide. There's a siddur called Shabsi Sofer. The Shabsi Sofer must have lived about 400 years ago. He was a Talmud of the Lavush. He was like a master in Dikduk, and he published a siddur, a Medukdik Siddur, and the Vada Arba Rotas at the time made a kind of a ruling that anyone who prints a Siddur has to kind of check it against the Siddur of Shabsi Sefer. So in his Hakdama, he mentions this, you'll see in a moment, and refers to this Sefer Tzroir HaMoir. This Sefer Tzroir HaMoir, which you have now, you can see on this slide, is written by someone called Rav Ram Saba, with an ayin at the end, Samach Beis Ayin, and it was probably published in Samach Gimel. So he precedes the Arizal by a generation or two. And this is the Sefer Al HaTorah, the Tzroir HaMoir, the Sefer Al HaTorah, Al Derech HaPshat, and Al Derech HaSod. So now, V'chein Omar, if you can see where the cursor is, V'chein Omar, the first line of this quote, V'chein Omar Zois Asu, K'moshe Osisili Esau. This is saying to his sons, we are now in a predicament. Well, do what I did when I got into a predicament vis-a-vis Esau. So that is Zois Asu is a remes to, I guess, to Esau. Because with Esau, my strategy was to buy him off with a gift. But can Hizkin Atzma Legimel Dvorim? So Yaakov is telling his sons also, we have now a challenge with this viceroy of Egypt. We're going to work a 3-pronged strategy. The Doiron, we'll give him a gift, the Melchama, and the Tefillah. And so that was the reason why he sends them a gift. But Doiron Kechum is Imras Oretz. Let's send him an attractive gift. And then La Melchama, then we have the mentions there. And then, sorry for playing up with it. And I have it underlined, yeah? The Omroi Ma'at Sori Ma'at Dvash. And now, here goes into Kabbalah. Limdom Soid Sand Lavash, which is a Rosh Tevis of those 6 items. Sorry, Dvash, Loit. What's the other one? The other one, it's a Rosh Hashanah, which has got a power in Kabbalah. And that was what he was, I guess he's saying that's La Milchama. Let's go down. I don't want to go too much into this because it's Kabbalah. Yes, thank you. I'm just now going down to the second underlining. If you go into a region where there is a plague raging, when you enter the city, the gates of the city, you should recite this pasuk Gimel Pa'amim, Ve'eine Nizuk, and you will be protected from danger. And then he says this pasuk has got 24 words, and 3 times 24 equals 72. And so if you look up the Sefer, you'll see more beautiful stuff. But this is the earliest source I could find of saying this pasuk, and now we understand a little bit that Yaakov is sending his sons to a dangerous area and is telling them, take this pasuk with, and that's the kind of shmira when you're going to be in that place. So here, this is now what I've copied from the Sefer of Siddur Shabsi Sefer. So he's got the whole Seder HaMagefa. In the Sefer, whatever. In the Sefer, he has a whole chapter on what would be recited as a segula to protect in a time of Magefa. And so he also brings this pasuk and some of the other things which the Tzemach Tzedek, which I quoted from the Tzemach Tzedek, are also over there in this Sefer. And so he's really pretty much quoting the Tzroir HaMoir. You see here, this where I'm pointing to, what's this pasuk got to do with? So he refers to the Tzroir HaMoir. One more thing about this, and then go on to some halacha stuff. This is a sefer called Mishnas Chasidim. Mishnas Chasidim was written by a Talmud of the Arizal, or perhaps 3 generations removed, the Bemnuel Chayriki, and he has a chapter. I think his sefer, the second part of Mishnas, the first part is more Kabbalistic, like what I'd like to call geography. And the second part is more like an Orach Chaim going through the Seder, and you've got Maseches Motzei Shabbos, Maseches Yom Rishon, etc. He calls it, it's in a style of Masechtas and Mishnah, Prokim and Mishnayos. So he's got I think on the Wednesday, he's got a whole thing about Magefa, and this is, you see the first line, Gam Yom Be'ez HaMagefa, and then look in Mishnah Hey, Chakach Yom HaPosuk VaYom Aleim Yisrael Avihem in Kain Eifei, and he says the whole Kavona Al Pi Kabbalah. He mentions, if you see, that's the same shame which was mentioned in Tzroir HaMoir, but he mentions the whole Cheshbon Al Pi Kabbalah. You can read further, but that's the background. So this pasuk has got a hidden shame in it, and that's the value of saying it as part of averting a magefa. Okay, so that's something which I was excited to discover, and I wanted to share with you. But at least we know that there is a soid here, and a little bit I was megala soid and where it comes from. Right. This I got a question. This is the question how it came. This anorak, is it chayiv b'tzitzis? Is it a hashash, a chayiv tzitzis? Because if you can see this anorak towards the neck, it's also got square corners. So you've got 2 square corners at the bottom, 2 square corners at the top, and therefore the practical shaila, is there a chayiv tzitzis, or alternatively, is there a chayiv to cut off a corner and allow and to make it a rounded corner? Shouldn't be chayiv tzitzis. Just B'derech Klal, the Alter Rebbe writes in the Siddur about a koldere. A koldere is Yiddish for a blanket. One should make the corner of the blanket, you'd make it rounded. B'derech Klal, the only people who round off corners of blankets are bocherim on the yeshiva's blankets. I don't know how many balabatim take their blankets and cut off corners, and certainly if it's an eider down, a quilt, you start cutting off corners, is Shimon Hayspashtis of the ganze Welt. But let's now read the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch. This is, I think, in Siman Tes.
Just a question: is this for wearing in your front garden? This beged?
why are you talking about carrying the feathers? The Alter Rebbe says, Malbushim shel Galilos Ashkenaz Sfard. So you used to have people wear togas, etc. And then we've got a newer development where we've got, Western clothes, Germany and in Spain. Shehem psuchim milefnehem l'maylo l'mato milmato. You've got, it's open by the neck, it's open by the chest, and so that's describing our jacket. V'yesh lahem arba kanofos, and it's got 4 corners, shtayim milmalo, 2 by the lapel, v'shtayim milmato, and 2 by the waist. Pturim min hatzitzis. It's exempt of tzitzis. Pavos. The primary idea of tzitzis is in a sense that you've got the 2 tzitzis in the front and 2 tzitzis in the back. And I've chazed this before, a beautiful word of the Rebbe, I think in Parshas Shlach, in Lamed Gimel, I think. How is the Eibush to Mekayim mitzvahs tzitzis? Even not the Eibush's tzitzis. The Kabseinu Yachad Meyar Bekanfes Haaretz. That's how the Eibishter is Mekayim Tzitzis, because we are the Tzitzis. We're looking to the Eibishter. Meitzitz min Hacharakim. We're looking. That's Mashiach then. But here we're Meitzit, and the Eibishter will gather us together. And Akushton, that is the Eibishter Mekayim Mitzvahs Tzitzis. Akolponim, and that's why Takeh, before Shema, when we say that Loshen, the Kabseinu Yachad Meyar Bekanfes Haaretz, that's why we gather the Tzitzis at that moment. Because the tzitzis is meant to symbolize the Arba Kanfes Haaretz coming together. Therefore, the typical tzitzis are on the talis, where you've got 2 tzitzis in the back, 2 tzitzis in the front, or talis cotton. Whereas, these types of garments, that the 4 corners are all in your front, you can't really wear it in any different form. Therefore, you could say it's arguable that there's no chiyuv at all, and that is therefore the minig lohokel. Abel kol yirei shamayim yachmel le'atzmei lasis keren achas agula. If you are more God-fearing, you will cut 1 corner and sew it in a way that it's curved. Kadesh lo yir lo arba kanfos meraboy kanofos meraboy. You shouldn't have 4 square corners. So this is the way we have. So the answer to that question is it chayav b'tzitzis? Minhag lahokel yirei shamayim would be machmir to make 1 keren cut up around.
John, isn't that a bit strong, that last sentence of a kol yirei shamayim? What it's going to be? People are not going to see it, and somebody, he's not yirei shamayim. It's
okay. I don't know how many people who I would associate with yirei shamayim walk around with such anoraks. Yeah. It's, it's a situation.
There are other clothes which have this stand-up collar.
Good. The next piece in the Shulchan Aruch, by the way, talks about where the lapel, like the sailors' collars, that they hang down, and they've got 4 square corners at the back. Those blue and white sailor collars. So that's the next discussion, Shulchan Aruch, which is not relevant to our discussion. That's 2 in the front and 2 in the back, but they're not coordinated. The front and the back are not really part of the same thing, and therefore it's okay. Okay, let's move on.
A blanket is neither is on top of you anyway. It's neither the front, there's no front or back in a blanket.
Yes, but the moshel for shatnez, you know that you're not allowed to have a shatnez blanket, and the same thing, legabe tzitzis, there's a svara that you should consider it a beged if you're sleeping by day. If you sleep by night, Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch in the Siddur talks about by night you should be concerned that you might go to sleep, whatever. It's literally a poshet, yeah, because derech olav is also called a levush.
Okay.
Next.
Sorry, so a yirei shamayim should do the same thing with his blankets and sheets.
So if it's a wool blanket, because other materials, one could argue, are not chayav b'tzitzis min haTorah. If it's a woolen blanket, which is not that common, or a linen, but that's even less common, linen sheet. But if it's something which you wear on, if it's a woolen blanket, it would be a shamayim would cut off a corner here.
You said a blanket.
So because there's an argument to say it's not chayav, it's not Chayv because not worn. And then you have another argument to say it's not Chayv in Torah because it's not wool. So then that the two will combine, and that's why most people are not so fussy about it.
Could you bend it over just to make it and sew it? Bend over the corner and sew it rather than cut it.
Okay, so a good point. That in Shulchan Aruch it says if you need to make a corner round, it's not enough to just bend it over and stitch it. You'd have to cut off the corner because otherwise it's kind of reversible change. Which the fact you didn't cut it off shows that you can argue perhaps in the case of a quilt, perhaps the one could be more lenient on there, because the reason why you're not cutting off the corner is not because it's just because you don't want to lose all the feathers. Okay, fine. Let's move on. So here we have a question. Someone got this from somewhere. Can it be kashered? So the rule about kashering is, one thing is that it has to be kashered on the same surface where the forbidden taste went in. So the fact that you've got in this grill, you've got the heating elements on the outside, in other words, behind the black, what you can see, that's not going to be good enough to kasher, because if it was used for tray, so then the taste had come in from what you can see, and the fire has to be applied there. Number one. Number two, with kashering, if it's a piece of equipment that would get ruined through kashering, so then you can't kasher it. In other words, even you want to take the risk. We're worried, halacha is that we were worried that you might not do a good job because you don't want to ruin it. So the general, then we have another thing about kashering. You can kasher with boiling water, and you can kasher with a flame. When the treif has been absorbed in a liquid form or through cooking, then you can kasher it with hot water. But if the treif has been absorbed without the medium of liquid, then you can only kasher it with fire. And so therefore, coming back to our case, we have here a grill. The only way to kasher it would be to take a blowtorch and to apply the blowtorch from the inside surface, usually because it's Teflon or similar non-stick surface, that's going to ruin it. And therefore, basically, it cannot be kashered. Having said all that, I'm looking at this, it looks like it's hardly ever been used. And therefore, I try to find out a bit more. It's a should. It's a pity to waste such a good piece of equipment, but fine.
What about putting it into a pyrolytic oven or a kiln? I understand that if you put it into a kiln, then that's an exception because you have no control over it.
Is that Yossi?
Yes, Yossi.
You're right.
What about a pyrolytic oven?
I don't know how this would survive a kiln. With all the plastic handles and all that, I think it come out rather flat.
But for things that are oven safe, could we use a pyrolytic oven?
Yes. So you could. There is this halacha of you can put stuff in a kiln, and in a sense, because a kiln is like you close your eyes, you hope for the best. You put there's no chance of you kind of interfering once it's inside the kiln. And therefore, even stuff which is a bit risky, you could kasher by putting it in a kiln. You could put even earthenware stuff, like China, you could put in a kiln, but I don't know what their survival rate is. And I don't have public, liability insurance.
No, I understand, but does a pyrolytic oven count as a kiln for this?
I think so. I think it would, yes. Yes, they are enormously hot. Okay, let's go on to the next point. So here's the following scenario. I'm going to have it in Hebrew, but I'm going to try to explain. We got Reuven and Shimon. Reuven is the benefactor, and Shimon is the beneficiary. That's the normal roles, the names which we give for the roles. Okay, so now Reuven lent Shimon his credit card. Not a very wise thing to do, but that's what happened, yeah? And so he lent Shimon the use of his credit card. Shimon used it, clocked up significant debt. And now let's say he's clocked up £1,000 of debt, didn't pay on time. So now this debt has now accrued interest, let's say £900. I don't know what the time period, let's say this is the kind of the way the shadow was put to me. Now, Shimon feels very bad that that Reuben has accrued this extra thing, but he knows, and that's the pashtus of the halacha is that Shimon cannot pay Reuben back that £900 directly, because basically Reuben has borrowed money from Barclays, and he's got one deal with Barclays. Then Reuben has kindly lent money to Shimon, but these are two separate transactions, so Shimon mustn't pay back a penny more than what he received in the loan. And therefore, the fact that Reuben got the money in an expensive way rather than take it out of his piggy bank, that doesn't allow Shimon to reimburse him. So that's generally accepted, and I always, when I'm teaching Talmidim, I try to explain this to them, that if you are lending someone by means of your credit card, you won't be able to retrieve the accrued interest. So just bear that in mind. So what the question here is, Shimon has got two interesting strategies. Number one, Shimon is a Malamed, and he says to his employer, the Manayel, could you, instead of paying me, pay directly to Reuven? So it's not that Shimon has taken the money and handed it over to Reuven. It's kind of deducted at source. Would that be an acceptable method? Next step was, if that's not acceptable, Shimon, there are these funds in various every community should have a tzedakah fund, and Shimon is, unfortunately, one of those who are on the receiving end on a regular basis. So he's got his budget, and he understands that he could ask the director of that fund, instead of paying me what you give me on a monthly basis or weekly basis, whatever it may be, if you could pay off that money to Reuven, so Reuven will be reimbursed. So I looked at this, and their first option I felt was not allowed. He's working, and then his wages are being deducted to pay Reuven ribis with interest. I didn't think that. But the other one I felt was I was more inclined to be lenient on this, but I wasn't confident. So I wrote to a friend of mine in Melbourne who's specialized in Hilchos Ribis, in the Shabsi Tayar. I asked him what he felt that even that second method also shouldn't be employed. In other words, there shouldn't be any way that Shimon is out of pocket because of reimbursing, because of ribis going to Reuven. What should be done, though? What should be done, and that was his recommendation. What do you do in such a situation? Because we have our sympathy for Reuven also. He's out of pocket. The answer is that Shimon, let's say, would get hold of £1,000 for 10 minutes. He gives it in cash to Reuven, pays off the old debt. Then Reuven gives back the £1,000 to Shimon. I'm giving it now to you under the terms of Heter Iska. And on the terms of Heter Iska, it's going to be an investment in Shimon's business, whatever it may be. On the terms of Heter Iska, he is allowed to reimburse, to give back more than what he received. So again, kind of wind down the previous loan, close that, create a new loan. Now it's not going to be a loan, it's going to be called a Heter Iska, and then you can make repayment terms however you see fit. That was his advice, and that's how I would go for it.
I'm asking, why can you not see Reuven Lechatchila as the shaliach? He's just passing the money from the goy to the goy, to Shimon.
Rabbi, look, we can see your fingerprint.
Pardon?
Is that the
I held the machine there.
So, pardon?
Yeah.
So
why?
The answer to this is that because Barclays don't know Shimon. Barclays have a deal with Reuven, and then Reuven has a deal with Shimon. He's not an agent. He's not like how do you say, whatever, people who are like agents connecting. He's not a shadchan. There's two separate transactions here. And that's
He'd be seen as an orev. which is also not
He's not
allowed.
even, he's more than an Orav, he's a lender.
But and if Ruvain is telling Barclay,
Yes.
Barclay trusts Ruvain, and Ruvain is saying whoever takes this, but he's just
And even if it's an Orav, is also, doesn't matter. You're not allowed to be an Orav for Ribbis either.
right.
If your son, by the way, if my son wants to buy a house and wants to borrow money from a Yid, no, wait a minute. I'll have to think about it. But there is restrictions even to be an Orav for a loan is also comes into Ribbis. Okay, let's move on.
Well, hang on, why can't he charge him a fee for using my card?
Because it's a loan.
But you know, this is not happening only with credit cards. It's going around. People are taking loans from banks without the credit card and passing it on. There's a whole business.
Okay. Yeah. Let's move on. So here, I didn't know what a ferret looks like. They look pretty cute to me. It's called a ferret. And this boy, he
Bite.
Pardon?
They bite.
Yeah, I scratch.
They bite.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they look cute. On the picture, they're cute. Social distancing, they're saying.
Can stay where it is.
So this boy, he feels that he needs to have some kind of therapy. How do you say? Animal therapy. And he's been somehow guided. This is the Chayim Yuchedes, which is going to bring the Toyeles Hanirtze in this situation.
An aquarium.
I'll tell you, I have to deal with the questions as they come. I sometimes I give them alternatives, not always do they work.
Sorry.
But they're actually cute. It's very, you say until they bite, yeah. I call upon him, see, but somehow he needs to get a female one. That's his fixation for his therapy, fine. I can't argue with that. But there's a very curious thing that a female ferret will not survive very long if it's left without a male, unless it's neutered. He actually sent me a link to someone explaining the how do you say, medical explanation why a ferret, female ferret, if it doesn't have a male with it, will not survive. Fine. So now, where the Shaila, are you allowed to buy this ferret, give it to a vet, and have it neutered for him? That was his question. Well, actually, at first, I was a little bit dismissive, I must say. I didn't understand, but he kept on. It was like quite persistent. It's important for him. So I spent a long time researching this. Now let's explain what is the shaila here. Well, we know that for a person to castrate a person or even an animal is written in the Torah. It's for leisasu be'artzachem. There's discussion in the Gemara whether the Isur of Sirus, which is castrating, whether that applies even for a goy. It's an Isur even for a goy. There's such a shit in the Gemara. Now, here I've got a quote from Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is in Shulchan Aruch. It's in Evno Ezer Siman Hey. Here I have a quote from Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Osu loyma le'ena Yehudi l'saris behema shalonu. We're not allowed to instruct a non-Jew to castrate an animal of ours, to neuter an animal. Yesh oimrim da'afiru lemochra le'ena Yehudi. If some say, since a goy is not allowed to do it himself either, so to sell it or to make some kind of business arrangement is also mishum de'ena Yehudi mitzuva gamkein al isur sirus. Even a goy is not allowed to do this neutering. Yisrael oiver al lifnei iver. You are forgiving. You are kind of aiding and abetting someone who's going to be doing. The goy is doing an avera. Miu ima eina Yehudi hakoine l'saras biatzmoi. If he does it on his own. If you go to John, and John doesn't do the job himself, John gives it to Nicholas. So then the Kuli Al Mashori, the Ozhave Lifne de Lifne Umuta. So you're not allowed to ask, you're not allowed to cause a goy to do an avera, but if that goy is going to give it to another goy, so that's the way he works out that it's okay. Rather unclear. Let's go down. Now, this is a quote from, you can see it's from Sh'or Metzion B'Halacha. The top of the Sefer is the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. The bottom of the Sefer is his own compilation from contemporary tshuvas. Actually, his grandson is the Rav in Crown Heights, Rabbi Broin. His name was Shlomo Zalman Broin, as you can see the name Shlomo Zalman. Apparently, the Rebbe recommended this sefer to Rabbi Yitzchak Groner when he went off. Perhaps it was to Australia. I'm not sure, but to
Moshe Feller.
To Moshe Feller, sorry. And he said what was the lashon when his machmir zavade.
The Rebbe said he's bechlal am bekel, und das meint as oi dort wo es machmir das a solide chumra. It's solid.
Generally, this Rabbi Broin in this sefer generally has a tendency to be lenient. If he's saying it's not allowed, well, you know it's pretty solid. Okay.
Yeah.
So now here he quotes from two Sforim about his dealing with the question: can you do a haroma? Now I'm going to translate the word haroma means to do a trick. In Yiddish, it's called shtick. Can you do shtick to sell your animal to a bird, an animal? To a goy, kedela sarsom, that they should neuter it. So he refers to the Chassam Sofer and the Maram Shik, who's a Talmud of Chassam Sofer. Actually, this has a third reference, which I didn't really need to look up. Ha'elef l'chosh shloime, which is Reb Shlomo Kluger, shenoitim lahatir. They're inclined to permit this, but open shebeshasa mechira yasne imoy. That you sell it to the goy, and that the goy should also, you said to him, that he should give it to another guy to do the actual operation, the sarasam, but loy halukech biatzmoi. And then he's relying on the lifnei de lifnei. So you've got this strategy, this method. When I looked at this, and I first came to the maskana that it's not allowed. The reason being, even though the Chassam Sofer says it is allowed, because the Alter Rebbe looks at the inyan of Amiru L'Nochri as a shlichus. So the Chassam Sofer and the Maram Shik, they're relying upon that there's no shlichus, ein shlichus le'akum. The Alter Rebbe's whole approach in Amir L'Nochri is very much based upon that l'chumra. We do say Amir L'Nochri is yes shlichus L'Nochri l'chumra. So, and clearly we touched on it 2 weeks ago. It says that the Easter of Amir applies to other Easterim also, not only to Shabbos. So we do have this problem, and if you don't recognize the concept of shlichus, so then it's not doing it for you. But if you see that yesh shlichus la'akam l'chumra, so then if it's doing it, then it's going to be your shliach. Now then another element here, and that is the concept of ha'aroma. If I'm not mistaken, in Gemara Shabbos, in the recent shiurim of a couple of weeks ago, we came up about doing shtick, and the basic line here is: if it's an issa deraisa, you can't do haroma. If it's an issa drabonon, you can. Haroma is allowed. So let's say somebody in the Maram Shik talks about mechiras chometz. Isn't that haroma? And possessing chometz is issa deraisa. So he says no, because there it's you're relying on bittul also. If you move out of your chometz, so therefore you're out of a deraisa, so you're in a drabonon. Therefore, you can rely on haroma. So with all of this, I was more inclined to say to this young lad that I'm sorry, but you can't have your ferret neutered even by this shtick. Then afterwards, I thought about it actually last night and looked it up this morning again. And I got back to him since. This is a female. All the dinim which are talking about in Shulchan Aruch is about neutering a male. And this is the last line which you have on the side here, talking about, it's don't have the full sentence. This was from Even Ezra Siman Hay. Is the issue of sirus applies to a human or to an animal, a bird. There's a discussion whether it applies to fish. No, not yet. The Hamasoris is on a cave of Bain Be'odom Bain Bishar minim potur aval osur. You see the font is a little different. So the Mechaber, Yosef Kara, is saying you're not allowed to do neuter a female. So no, sorry. The Mechaber says if you do neuter a female, you are not punished. The Ramo adds aval osur, so it's not allowed. So it seems to be very clear that neutering a female is max in Issa Rabbanon. Once it comes into Issa Rabbanon, then I can rely on that you can do Haroma, and then you can rely on, and then Amir al-Nochri and all of these shtick become so much more allowable because we're dealing with maximum in Issa Rabbanon, not with the Issa Torah, and therefore it would be allowed. Okay.
Could he not have said, I don't mean to override you, Costa, could he not have said, I will buy if it has been neutered, if you have a neutered one?
I tried that with him. I tried to tell them do that, and he said that they're not easy to get hold of, and etc. And so that option didn't seem to be available to him. Right. Let's
what
go
about
on.
if he gets a male as well?
Yeah, then I have to ask his mother whether she's agreeable to have a whole mishpacha of ferrets.
It cost him insurance for the house then. Have you seen these things? They're sugar.
Right. On the video they look cute. Okay,
Much easier to deal with.
let's move on. Balcony minyonim. This is my next question. Balcony minyonim. So I think we went through this in recent shiurim, and we've got the Royan Zeh, and the source of Royan Zeh is actually the Mishnah in Brachos, which talks about zimun. When you got two groups, Royan Zeh, they can combine to one zimun, and that din has been exported from zimun to tziruf to minyan. So this question is not from London; it's from another part of the world, because we're not so much into balconies. Yeah, by us it's more bayit vegan. Yeah, have your house with a little garden. But
There are flats with balconies.
Yes. I mean, it does exist, and it doesn't matter.
The new Gross building has loads of people davening on balconies.
Yes. So now, the question which was asked the following: you've got three groups. A can see B, and B can see C, but A can't see C. Now, when we say two groups can see one another, can be recognized as one group, can you do that more than once? And so we have a few people on different balconies round the corner kind of thing. Could they combine to a minyan? That was the question. So let's read the din, as this is the top of your page if you have in front of you. This is from Shulchan Aruch, Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch. It's Siman Nun Hey, Seif Yud Zayin. In Miktzos, now actually, having said what I just said, it can also be in the back garden minyanim. Also, there could be the similar kind of situation where, not everyone can see, or everyone else, but can the middle one who sees one end of the street and the other end of the street, can they combine? This is the shaila. So let's read inside. This is part of a longer discussion in Siman Nun Hey, because Siman Nun Hey is all about, it's just before Kaddish. Shulchan Aruch goes and to the Seder Hayoim, talked about tzitzis and tefillin, and then it's talking about a minyan. So to be able to say Kaddish, you need a minyan. So then it starts talking about what constitutes a minyan. So im mikzosen bifnim or mikzosen bachutz. You've got inside the house, let's say there's 5 people, and there's outside the house, there's 4 people. Let's say 5 people, doesn't matter. There's no minyan. Each side cannot see one another. Or shliach tzibur al gabi iskupa toich haPesach. I'm not sure of the detail why it's been so, so specific. But the chazan is standing on the threshold, and he's able, I presume, to see both parties. So the halacha is hu mitzorfon. He is going to act as a combining factor because he can see both of them. The way I understand this halacha is that the chazan is not part of either group. but because he can see both of them, so therefore he serves to combine the two. Therefore, coming back to that question, A, B, and C. Let's say you've got balconies. You've got one balcony on the corner of the building, and that's balcony B, and you can see to one side, you can see on A, a couple of people, and you can see on the other side of the building, you can see another few people. Can he act as a bridge to connect them all? So the answer is, if that pivotal balcony B, if one of them is the chazan, the answer is yes. If he's not the chazan, then the answer is, I guess, it's not. You don't see it. It's only the chazan is able to combine them, but I don't see that that B not being chazan is able to combine A and C. Now, another practical halacha, although this I don't have a source for this, earlier source, but actually in the Kfar Chabad, I received the newest Kfar Chabad. There's an article there by Reb Mendel Bahava, a big Talmud Chacham, anyway, about halachas, about Corona and Minyonim. I just read it last night, and he says the same thing. A person saying Kaddish. The person who's saying Kaddish, at that moment, he is the Chazan. So the same thing, let's say, for Kriyas HaTorah. Kriyas HaTorah would have to be done on balcony B. And then you can combine A and same thing for Kaddish. A and C won't be able to say Kaddish because they don't see 10 people. They'd have to somehow be in position to be able to see the meaning from his it doesn't have to see them b'shas ma'aseh. He can read the Kaddish inside the Siddur, but he has to be able to see both parties to be able to take that lead role of saying Kaddish. Right, let's move on.
The important thing with saying Kaddish is that the person saying Kaddish can see the people, not that they can see him, but that he can see them.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that usually works together.
Because when so I'm saying Kaddish for certain people, so they asked me, my neighbors asked me, can you stand a bit higher in your garden so we can see you? It's really that I should be able to see them.
Yeah, it goes both ways, yeah. Kemafurish on the back of the trucks. If you can't see me in the mirror, I can't see you, yeah?
Raskin,
yes.
Didn't you say it a few weeks ago on the Motzei Shabbos Shir that in Lubavitch house, if there's somebody behind the Oren Kodesh,
yes. That's because
then
it's in the one room. If it's indoors, yes.
If it's in one room.
That would not work outdoors.
Only in one room.
Of course, there's a unit called a room, which is kind of joining them.
Okay.
And by Zimun, actually, by Gabi Zimun, wouldn't work. And that's one example where actually the dinim of Tzira for Minyan are more lenient than Tzira for Zimun, that was the discussion there.
I have your site next Shabbos. What should I do?
We'll talk about it. Yeah.
Okay.
But if B is saying Kaddish, can C also say Kaddish?
No. What I'm saying is that whoever is saying Kaddish, listen, I don't have a reason to support this, but my understanding is the one who's saying Kaddish is kind of a chazan at that time. But listen.
No, but if he is, then it's one minyan. And C can also say Kaddish at the same time as him. B and C can say together.
I hear the Shaitaina. I'll do a thing about it. Okay.
Are you talking about two different Kaddishim here?
No. He's saying if someone on B is saying a Kaddish Yosem, perhaps someone in C or A can also say, because there is a minyan happening, so why can't he kind of take a ride with them? Kind of, yeah? Okay, let's leave that for further iyum. Let's go on to the next question we have, Kriyas HaTorah. Now, we want to have Kriyas HaTorah together with social distancing. I don't know whether we had this discussion about in this forum. Could you then, and there's according to the Rosh, you can only say a bracha if your mom is standing and reading from the Sefer Torah. According to the Rosh, a blind person could not be given an aliyah. there's a sefer called Masas Binyamin, who was about 400 or 500 years ago, and he says that when you have an Aliyah Torah, it's the Bal Koira's bracha, because he's reading. I'm not reading, he's reading. So I'm saying a bracha on his reading. So according to Masas Binyamin, you could stand from a distance and also say a Birchas HaTorah. And I used this years ago in the case of an old age home, where the people, the residents, found it difficult to come to the Torah. So according to Masas Binyamin, they could sit in their place and they could, I don't think you should say Yamoid if they're not going to stand up, but find a different Lashon. Isn't a Mechabed, Ploini, yeah, and he would say his bracha from his seat. According to Masas Binyamin, would be okay. According to the Rosh, it's not okay. The discussion, a lot of this in the Tzemach Tzedek and Simon Lamedein Erechaim. At any rate, according to the people asked me, I felt that we should be machmer and not say a bracha from a distance. I know it's 770. Simchas Torah, Shalom Shimon said you can make a bracha from a distance. There's a hechrich. Everyone has to have an aliyah on Simchas Torah, and it wasn't practical for everyone to. So he relied on the Masas Binyamin, perhaps, possibly. I don't know. Even could have Masas Binyamin shvach, because why does he need 500 bracha? Now, just a second. The other thing is that in Simchas Torah, we're much more lenient, repeating the same thing again. The fact that you have a leniency for Simchas Torah doesn't become nicht ganz Yore Simchas Torah. Yes.
My minion, my garden minion, they said they got a psat that you can say the bracha on the Torah from a distance, but you must read the actual kriya.
Okay.
So they're machmer that the person making the bracha has a text with the kriya in it.
All right, listen, there's lots of variations of advice given on this Indian. And so I'm going to give another variation. What we've in our street, we've managed to make that the person who has an aliyah stands behind the Bal Koira from a distance, let's say of 6 feet. The bima is quite steep in a way, especially built a makeshift bima, but that you are able. I can see from 6 feet away. I can read the text. I might be difficult to read it smoothly, but I can follow along. And he uses a yad. The Bal Koira uses a pointer, so I can follow. So I'm keeping to social distancing, and I am able to follow along. And in that setting, that should be okay. Now, in the Beis Din of Chabad in Eretz Yisrael gave out a list of guidelines because now in Eretz Yisrael the government have allowed minyanim, etc., keeping social distancing. So what they've written there was, you go over to the Sefer Torah, the Bal Koira goes away, you go over to the Sefer Torah, say your bracha, and then you step back, the Bal Koira goes over, reads, he finishes, then he goes away, you come back. And I found that I called up one of the Rabbonim, I wasn't clear, where does this come from? So it is written in Shulchan Aruch, written in the Gemara, that before you make your bracha, you have to be roya mashi yikra. This is Shulchan Aruch and Simon Kuf Lamed Tes Sif Dalet, that you, before reading from the Torah, you should see what you're going to be reading. So that's why they're telling the person to come over. But I still feel, according to Tzemach Tzedek, to make a bracha and then step away, I didn't understand the sense of it. You'd have to be standing right nearby to be able to read. That's how I understand Tzemach Tzedek. So I mean, there is a value of and then it's the fact that it says in Shulchan Aruch that before reading you have to see what you're going to be reading. I could argue that can be done by the Bal Koira. In other words, the reason for looking in the Sefer Torah is so that when you open the Torah, you should know where you're going to read. So gearing up to reading, but that's more for the reader than for the one who's being given the honor of having an Aliyah Torah. So be that as it may, I think with this method of standing 6 feet behind the Sefer Torah and you're seeing actually, then I think it's safe. No kissing the Sefer Torah because of keeping your social distancing and all that. Yes, Gav.
So, in my opinion, we cannot get anywhere near the same Torah. So, 2 things. If I'm called up, I should say no.
That's your choice. You have there is. I'm presenting you a more machmir position and a more lenient position. The more lenient position says you can make a bracha from the distance. The more stricter position would say no.
And you're not paskening either way.
I'm giving you the option whether to take the machmir or the lenient position. Yeah.
So is
I didn't have an aliyah for weeks until they changed it to make this this system. Before they were just doing it across the street, and I said, I don't have to have an aliyah. You know, I'm not mechuyev. Don't do me favors. Then they changed it around. I can read what's going on. So then I felt that was accepted. Okay, let's.
I did see one. Somebody. I did see a blind person. I did see a blind person have an aliyah once.
Yes, that's written. So the Shulchan Aruch is brought down that they do give. That's relying on the Masas Binyamin, who says that you don't have to read because you're making the bracha for the Balkoyer. That's brought in Poskin. They rely on that.
So is Roya Mashakoira by the bracha enough, or you still have to follow through?
I think you'd have to actually follow along. Just to see before and then to step back, I don't see the seichel in it, because according to the Rosh, you have to follow along. According to Tzemach Tzedek, which is a third mahalach, you're standing in a position as if you are reading Barabim. But if you're standing back, according to Tzemach Tzedek, I don't think that's enough. I know you're suffering from this psak, yeah? Rav Getzel.
Yeah.
So,
Kane all this
right.
right.
Yeah. If you have to, we'll have to work it out. Let's move on. There was an article in the Jewish Tribune last week, and it was all about Birchas HaGoimel. Someone, Daniel Neustadt from Detroit. Nice article. But one thing he wrote there, which brought to my attention, that if a person needs to bench Goimel, he should say, and he's the let's say the Shlishi on a weekday or Shvi on a Shabbos. So there's now Kaddish and Goimel. So he writes that you should say the Birchas HaGoimel before Kaddish. And as you can see, I've got here a quote from the Sefer HaMinhagim. Amavorach Birchas HaGoimel la'acharei kriya hakriya asmucha li amiras Kaddish yamte bebichos ad acharei amiras Kaddish hakati Kaddish ve'ozivarech. So the halacha, I mean, this is from the Rebbe, from Tafshin Chav Gimel. There was a case where in front of the Rebbe someone did the HaGoimel before Kaddish, and the Rebbe spoke about it by the Farbrengen and how he feels that it's inappropriate because the Kaddish should be as close as possible to the Kriya, and that's what we have in the footnote, a quote from the Shari Ephraim, which is a sefer specialized on Kriyas HaTorah, Lahasmich Amiras Kaddish La Kriya B'kol HaEfsher. Now the Shari Ephraim Zalman Agolis, I think, he's not talking about Birchas HaGoimel. He's talking about Mishaberach. The Mishaberach should be said after Kaddish. And this is now being kind of applied in our situation. And the same thing, Birchas HaGoimel should be said after Kaddish rather than before Kaddish. The Rebbe is not fussy about this, and it's true. It's something which the Rebbe alerted. In the Sefer from Rabbi Gurari, Chikrei Minhagim, so Chelik Beis, Yechon Gerari, he's got a whole 6-7 page discussion about this. He brings from also a sefer called Yerech Yankiv, who also is quite adamant, like the Rebbe's position, that you shouldn't be saying the Gomer before, it should be said after Kaddish. 2 more points, perhaps. One is, someone wrote to me after the questions had gone out, he had suffered from COVID for 4 days. He was in bed for 4 days. Does he bench Goimel? So the way it's written in Alter Rebbe's Siddur, you have Seder Birchas HaNe'emel has the dinim of Birchas HaGoimel. So I'm reading the text. Some say that Ein HaCholim Mevorech, you only say the bracha when there was a life-threatening illness. Let's say there was some problem inside or something, like he would be Machal Shabbos. Well, the Meiser, he says, Yesh Linhoig, that if he was bedridden more than 3 days, he should make the bracha HaGoimel when he recovers. So even if COVID was not life-threatening, I would also say, if you were in bedridden for more than 3 days, you should say the bracha. Certainly, and tragically, it is life-threatening, as we all know. And therefore, the answer is yes. There's Hashem, when you are feeling back to normal and you are able to say Birchas HaGomel, you should say Birchas HaGomel. One more thing is...
Dan Raskin, I had it for 5 days.
Yes.
So do I, and this was 4 weeks ago, do I bench Goimel now?
Yes, yes. And you don't have to be standing next to the Sefer Torah. You can do it, this you can do from a distance, in case that's the next question, yeah? You have a garden minion, yeah?
Yeah.
You don't have to stand by the Sefer Torah to say Birchas HaGomel.
Okay.
The last question I want to share with you is someone asked me again today, could he whisk cream on Shabbos, to take eggs or something and with a whisk to whisk it up and make it into some kind of whipped cream? And the answer is no. You can look it up if you want to in Piskei Teshuvos Siman Shin Chaf Aleph Sif Lamed. We mentioned last week, we talked about making ice cream. So that's one aspect. It might be Inyan of Lisha, but even less than that, without going to that, you have also that you are it's like moilid. You are creating a new kind of entity, and therefore no. So the whisking wouldn't be allowed. Someone asked me today. I'm finishing with this. Could they're doing every Friday evening before Shabbos, they're doing a pre-Kabbalah Shabbos service over Zoom. This is someone in Italy. And could they have someone playing guitar along with the Chadodi? So actually, as I told him that historically, I've heard of shuls in Europe, that they would have an organ and they would play music during the Chadodi, and then at the end of the Chadodi, Mizmor Yom Shabbos was Kabbalah Shabbos. Obviously, they started earlier, not after the Shkia, and they would do that. But his question was because of Sfira. So I felt that because of Sfira Soimer, after like Boimer, if it's necessary, one can be more lenient about it. And okay, so I wish you with that. I'll leave you. I don't have a guitar, so I can't.
Weren't the shuls with organs the modern shuls? They were
yes,
like halfway
the
to
core shuls. They were like the cathedral type synagogues. Which, the Rebbe Rashab, when he was in Rome, I think he didn't want to step into that shul. But they did exist, and they kept a Shulchan Aruch to a level. And yeah, I mean that's where they talk about the Chazonim with long hair and with the canonicals, etc. Yeah, I'll call upon him, Simon Betoy, whisk your cream before Shabbos, and have a wonderful Shabbos.
Quick question about whisking. Whisking a vinaigrette to mix it.
You know what? Call me up separately, and let's wind up the year. And we'll have Shabbos. I'll take calls till Shabbos. Yeah.
Shabbos.
Or till I say Mizmor Yom Shabbos. Okay.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos. Reb Naftali, send me the recording. Yes.
Shabbos.